Hello and welcome to my tropical style garden rebuild here in the UK. It's been a beautiful, sunny, dry week, and you'd think with that kind of weather I would have had really good progress, but to be fair, work's been busy, time's been short, but I've still managed to get some jobs done. So in this video I'm going to take a walk around, show you where I'm at, the problems that I'm facing, and generally where we're going from here. So let's get on with it. Okay, so if you're new to my garden and new to this channel, it might be worth going back a few episodes and seeing the project so far. But in summary, I used to have a large circular lawn with no paths going down it and lots of quite established tropical plants. Now, I came to the decision that it was time for a change, and in my design I thought I would put a new path in going round to the right down to the bottom of the garden. That then escalated into creating this yin yang design where we have half of the yin in grass, which has all got to be returfed, and the yang side of it, if that's correct, which is going to be plants and pond. So I started off by building this path. I've now added this water feature here, which used to be over there, because I like the idea that there's going to be a lot of water in the rest of the garden, and I wanted to bring the sound of that water right to the front near where we sit to sort of lead my brain and my senses onto the rest of the journey. Obviously it's not been planted around it yet. I have various plants in, and I have some maybe waiting to go in, some that have got to be moved. Generally, what I'm trying to say, it is nowhere near a finished article. Now, what I have done is I have planted these two Musa Bajou, which were dug up from down the bottom end of the garden when I built that path. I personally wanted to put a Trachycarpus here, or some sort of large evergreen type tree, but for now I like the idea that I could just instantly, I had these bananas, I could get them in. I was going to have the height straight away. They are probably 6 foot of stem, so they're going to give me the instant impact, and when these big leaves come on, it's going to give me a real jungly feel as I walk round. Will they stay forever? I'm not sure. So let's get going round. The first thing I've been having to think about is there's lots of new plants to go in, and plants that are being moved from other parts of the garden. Now, it's April, and it's a very tricky time in the UK to plant at borders. Generally, you can get in the hardy evergreens, like these Mahonias and Astelias and stuff like that, because they'll be just absolutely fine with it. But what you have to do is, when you're planting these borders up, you have to think about what else is going in, what's going to die back over winter and then come up in them gaps, what's going to be tender that you want to add in. And this is the problem you have in April, that you have to think about how big these plants are going to get. So for instance, I've given an example here with this Mahonia. You plant it that size, but you have to be aware that it's going to get to that size. Yes, you can prune it, but you've also got to give these plants room to grow. Now, as I say that, I am going to heavily plant this section because I really do want this to almost be a jungly feel as I go through. I want a canopy above me, and I want the plants to start to encroach the path. I haven't carried on planting it yet because I still need to grout this section of the new path, and then I can add all these extra ferns and stuff just to bulk it up. It's still very early stages. Okay, so I'm going to walk around under some dead looking tree ferns. Sorry, dead looking fronds, most definitely not dead looking tree ferns, but they'll be cut off soon once the new ones come out, so they'll be perfectly healthy. Okay, walking around here, that's just my tripod stand to try and get my levels out around my pond. Now, I'm going to show you the shape of this pond, and I showed the shape of it so far in my last video. I can say at the moment it's irrelevant because it's going to change a lot, because at the minute this shape isn't working. Obviously it's got to be a lot deeper, because as I walk around here, the water level is going to be governed by the height of these bridges. So if you can see this little wooden stake here, this is going to be the water level. That will be the height of the water at the top of the pond, and that is about 50 mil, which is nearly, you know, inch and a half sort of size under that bridge. So the water has to be under that bridge and to clear it, and that is pretty much how I've set my levels. Right or wrong, that is how I've worked it out. Now that means that I've got to go a lot deeper. See, there's another stake there. So at the minute, as you can see, there's only probably 4 or 5 inches there, and I've got to go down a long way. But my problem is I can only make it so wide. Now I need to put these ledges in like this to sit my rocks on as I go along. So just to clarify, if you're unaware, so what I'm building here is what they do very well in America, which is an ecosystem pond, which generally speaking is a very natural looking pond, very different to how a lot of ponds are built in the UK. In summary, you would put an underlayment protective fabric down, then your liner, which is like a rubber liner, good quality one, and then you can also put some more underlayment on top if you need to, because once you've put your liner in, you are then going to put gravel to cover the bottom layers, then build your rocks up. Honestly, it would be really easier if you just go and look on YouTube and type in ecosystem pond and see some of the amazing ones that people build, but I'm trying to give a basic summary. And then so basically you won't see any of the liner, and it's to look as natural as possible. Now, as far as filtration in these things, you generally have at one end your pump. So my pump's going to go into this hole, which needs a lot more dug out. There's going to be liner in there, and then there will be a tube with the pump in, and crates, like soakaway crates that they use in building to take away rainwater, and pebbles on top. And basically the water's going to come through here, soak through the pebbles into the crates, and then the pump will pump it all the way down, all the way down, all the way down to the bottom end, which we're going to see in a minute. And then it's going to waterfall its way all the way back down. Now that's probably from where I'm sat to the back end about 13, 14 meters. Not sure what that is in feet for the Americans. But basically it's a long way for the water to travel. So I'm probably going to have to put extra little jets of water to help push that water along and keep making sure I have plenty of flow and no sort of stagnant dead spots where it's not going to be very well oxygenated. Like I say, don't overlook and go, you've dug nowhere near enough out, because I'm quite aware I haven't. And I know that if it was a proper pond builder, they would dig out the right amount at the top and then work their ledges down. But I am very much making this up as I go along. It's very much governed by the plants that are already in, the paths that are in, and that is limiting me for space. So where it looks like it might be a really big gap here, obviously if I put rocks in here and then stepped up and then stepped up, this bottom space, which has still got to go down quite a lot more yet, I'm probably looking to go 2 foot deep here, which is about 600 mil, and then maybe in the back part try to go deeper if I can, so I've got a deeper area. I'm hoping to have koi in it. I've just realised that you're listening to me blabbering on, and the camera footage is just me aiming at a bridge and a load of dirt. Hopefully I can find some editing to make this a little bit more interesting. But long story short, I'm having to put a lot of thought into how to work this. So, because these stones aren't going to stack very well, so I can't have really big steep walls. I know that a lot of ponds in the UK would just have liner going straight up and round and the rocks on the top. I'm not looking at doing that. For one, the rubber liner that you use to make these ponds needs to realistically be protected from UV light, so the sun's rays. So by putting the gravel and the rocks on top of the liner, which is protected so it can't be pierced, you will stop that from happening, and also make it look like there's no liner even there, and very, very natural. So the reason I'm probably spending so much time just talking about this before I start is I know that a few of the people that watch my videos make these ponds, and I figure if I talk about it enough, they might give me some very friendly advice. But if I make these sides really steep so I can get my depth, then it makes it very hard for me to stack the rocks, because I'm using these slate rocks and I have got various sizes, and I'm going to buy a pack of the much bigger rocks as well, so that helps me get up and down these steep ledges. Realistically, I know that this isn't making sense to a lot of you, so I'm going to go on to other parts of it. But the people that know, hopefully, will realise what my dilemma is at the minute, and how I'm going to sort this out without buying something to stack up really, really high to make a steep wall. And also, I'm a bit concerned that I don't want it to be too steep too quick, because it's going to feel like you could easily fall in. I sort of want it to be more gradual, and then I'm going to get a lot more plants around it. I told you this was going to be a bit of a non-thought out video, so I'm going to get on before I bore the living daylights out of everyone that doesn't care two hoots about a pond. Right, so let's talk about some plants then. That might make it better. Okay, so a few plants. These aren't necessarily where they're going to go. Here we have what was, and this is the problem with new tender leaves, they don't like it when it gets cold, because even though we're having a lovely sunny spell here in the UK, we are still due 0 degrees at night, so can get frosts. And this can happen right up to potentially sort of mid-May, depending whereabouts, whether yourself or up in Scotland. Here in the UK, as I've just stepped back and fell into the pond. Okay, so this plant is sort of, it's a Neopanax laetus. I totally just forgot where my head was at then. Used to be called, I think, Pseudopanax laetus. It's going to be hardy to about -5, -6, probably lower. I'm quite sure a few of you out there have had it much lower than that. It's probably going to be planted in that spot where it's going to be protected over by quite a large Trachycarpus. It does like an element of shade, and this is just going to get late afternoon sun, So I want it to sort of grow there and slowly hang over this space. And I'm gonna like them leaves in contrast to this, which is the Astelia Silver Shadow. Then we have a Mahonia Soft Crest behind it. And then we have the Trachycarpus, which is the Waggy Palm there. And then we've put some other grasses around here. Heucheras, these are like limeade, which I think go really, really well with the Pseudopanix purpurea. So the feeling I'm trying to get, and that is actually a very key point. What I'm trying to do in this garden, more than anything, is create a feeling. How do I feel when I walk in? Every plant you choose, the style of your garden, the way you plant them, should be about the feeling you are trying to create. So that is where we're going to go on to next. Okay, so with that in mind, what kind of feeling are you trying to create in your garden? So if that be a Mediterranean type feeling, you're going to use probably plants like these agaves or these Chamaerops humilis, and then use very simple natural products, maybe, you know, some limestone walls or gravels and rocks, maybe some olive trees. But if the feeling you're trying to create is more of a jungle, then you're going to probably go for big leafed plants like Tetrapanax or Gunnera and stuff like that, and confine the spaces to tight pathways and overhead canopies. So what am I trying to create? What is the feeling that I want in this garden? Well, I always had the idea many years ago that if I could create my ideal garden and I had a big bit of land, I wanted this tiki type village that looked like it was by the side of a river with a forest and a clearing and water right next to you and all the plants overhanging the water. Now, I haven't got that bit of land, but I have now got the chance to design my garden in a way that I can get that type of feeling. So with that, last year I built my gazebo, my tiki hut, and then many years ago I built my gazebo at the back there, which I sit. So that is almost my village, tiki village style. And then now I'm adding the more lots of green, lush planting, jungle style plants, thin pathways, a sense of journey that's gonna make me feel I want to walk down there. I want to see what's around that corner. I want to travel through this garden and pick up all the details. And the best gardens I've ever visited, the second I walked in, made me just think, wow, because they created the atmosphere. And for me, the atmosphere is going to be the key element to this whole garden. Taking a step back to the crossroads, I've covered quite a bit recently that new path going over the dry stream, and this is my bridge, and this is going to be my journey to the back. I've still got to grind out the joints from the old grout and re-grout and clean up all this path going round to the back. So this is in my last video where I talked about where my secret pathway is going to be, and round the back here is going to be my rear pond. While I'm just on it, I'll show you, this is the Brassioopsis that I cut at the end of the year, and next to it is the cutting I took from it, which has produced 2 new leaves. Really happy with that. Gone off topic a little bit, but well chuffed. That's going to Anthony at the Contemporary Jungle, whose video is on my channel, and that's going to look great in his garden when it gets bigger. Back to the pond build. Okay, again, the same as the front. This isn't going to be the depth, this isn't going to be the size. I'm literally working out what I can get. I've took all these paving slabs which were here. I'm going to take out some more paving slabs along here, but excuse the mess, but this will be our seating area. And when I get out of this seat, I don't want to feel like I can just fall in the pond. So I need some sort of rocks or something to separate before I get to the pond. I'm going to take a jump down. So the idea is that when I sit under there, I can look down and see the fish swimming all the way down here. This has got to go a lot deeper yet, and then it's going to look like this beautiful jungle stream that the fish can swim down. Now, I spoke in my last video, when I get to this point where these steps are going to be, this is where I have to put my big plastic tube, hence why I've got to go down another foot at least, and then the membrane's going to go in. I said this before, big tube going in there, which is going to make a tunnel that the fish can swim through, just on this about 2 meter section long. Hopefully that's not too bad. It's quite a long way for the fish to swim without being able to see them, I know, but the path's going to be here, and then it steps, there's going to be stepping stones which are going to stagger across here and then go up there, and that's probably a span of about 2 meters, because this path I couldn't get directly opposite that. And I like the idea that I weren't just taking one step and going across. Bloody blackbirds have just made me jump out of my skin. Silly thing. Right. Crikey. So that's the idea of that. And then there'll be stepping stones going across that. The fish will be able to swim around here, go under that bridge and into the pond. From the back part, I'm going to be able to see this bridge because it's going to create a nice clearing. Going to be able to see all these plants and the blackbirds again. It just follows me absolutely everywhere, and he's pretty much been in, tries to get into nearly every video. Right, going to this back part, I'm going to end up talking about ponds too much again. So I'm just going to point at a couple of nice tree ferns. Look how green these still are after winter. Minus 3.4 was the lowest, but absolutely untouched. The only protection I still have in the whole garden is just fleece in the tops, because the new growth is just getting ready to push out, and we are still going to get close to frost for a little bit longer, so that's going to stay in until they start pushing out. Okay, this is my next part of the dilemma for the pond people that are watching. Up here is going to be my waterfall coming down. Now I have a choice of putting the filter and the waterfall up there, or I have what they call in the pond world, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but the pond people will know, I might have enough room. That's probably 2 meters by 1.5 meters I could fit in there. I might have the room to possibly put in a wetland filter or a bog filter to make it go in, come through the rocks and then come back round. I know that that is the best filtration method that there is pretty much for a koi pond. That space I've worked out would be about 10%, probably a bit more of my overall pond water coverage. So hopefully that may be the option. But one thing I'm finding from looking up for all the filters and all the liners and everything, it's going to cost a lot more money than probably I first thought. Now that's my own fault because I made the pond nearly 3 times the size it was originally going to be. But there was one thing when I started this whole build that I said to myself, and that was, when you get to the end of it, however long that be, have no regrets. And that has been my motto through this whole thing. Have no regrets. Do not get to the end and wish I had done it this way or wish I had done it that way. So if something's going to cost me a little bit more and it takes me a bit longer, I'm going to have to deal with that or live with that. I do not want to put all this work, effort, time, money into it and then go, I wish I had done that. Now, maybe the exception to that is, and I'm just going to jump back to the other end of the garden and I'll explain there. Okay, so my dilemma is this bit here, because just there in that space has been designated for my hardy palm, which is going to be, or was hoping to be, a Jubea chilensis, which is an absolutely beautiful feathered palm, which I haven't really got any feather palms in my garden because they're not generally as hardy. The Butias are quite hardy, and the Jubea chilensis is pretty much the hardiest of the feather palms that I could grow in my climate. The only problem is I want a good size one and I want it there. Realistically, it's going to cost about £1,000 for a palm tree. I actually said that a little bit quiet because the bedroom window's open and I don't want my wife to hear the price of that, even though she is totally understanding with most things. I think I said if I told her £1,000 for a palm tree, there'd be a conversation to be had. No, she's a good old girl, really. But I love the idea of this big feather palm going here as my main focal point as I walk out, not work out. But with all the other expense of all what I've got to do and this pond I've got to create and the lawn that's got to be done and the paths that have got to be grouted and the filters that have got to be brought, £1,000 pretty much for a palm tree. Now, I know that there's certain people out there that sell good quality smaller ones that I could probably get for about 300 odd pound. But going back to the no regrets bit, would I look at my garden all year for the next 5 years wishing I'd bought a bigger palm? Because they are a beautiful palm, but they are very slow growing, especially in a UK climate where we don't get super hot summers. So that's food for thought. Okay, let's take a little bit more of a look around this bit round here. These are plants, these rocks are just piled here. This is not some sort of crazy rockery that I've just made up. There will be rocks in there. There's lots of more plants to go in there. I've got to figure it out. Here's another dilemma for you. Yeah, I want this agave to go in somewhere. Absolute stunner. This is a Vertifolia, beautiful agave, and it's pretty hardy, so I could leave it out all year round, but I need really good drainage. Yes, I may have to give it overhead protection, but it can get to sort of about 2 meters wide, so I've got to give it space to grow as well. And I'm kind of thinking that if I put it in this area, which is probably, I don't know, good 1.5 meters, I'd get a lot of years out of it. Or it's got to go somewhere in this border, but which would get a lot of overhead protection and full sun all day long. The only thing is I've got to give it the drainage, and realistically I think that means raising it up. So One option is to almost build like a circular well type shape with some of these rocks and put one in. That's an option. I know that steers away from my natural look, but it is very much a designed garden. It's the idea is that someone's designed a garden in a very natural setting, not that everything has to look like it's been there forever. So if I want to leave this out all year round, I pretty much want to be planting it in a raised bed with almost like pure grit gravel, really good drainage, to give it the best chance to sort of thrive. So that's a bit of a dilemma. Do I build like a well bit in there, a raised bed in that, which I think would look really nice, and being circular would probably go with this whole circular yin yang feeling I've got. The other thing is I could probably look into buying a circular cordon steel planter type thing, which I could put into that border, fill with really good free draining stuff, and put that agave in there. If I put it in this area, I could probably dig that section out and put rocks around it both sides and absolutely fill it full of grit and gravel and stuff like that to really sort of raise it up. The problem is, if I raise this up too much, then I've got a longer way to get down to the pond, as in to build up with my rocks. So if the rocks only have to go to here to retain the soil above and the gravel, not too bad. The higher I bring this is going to then look like that, a weird hump. So I don't mind bringing it up a little bit, but not too much, because I haven't just got the room to create that. So basically, most of this video has me been talking about the problems that I'm facing. I'm confident that by the time I'm finished in this garden, I'm going to have solved them all. But I've had some great comments over loads of these videos, and as much as I'm a landscape gardener, I've only ever built one pond in my life, and that was a wildlife pond for a customer. It came out really, really well, and looked really, really nice. So I'm very confident that hopefully I can produce something really nice at the end. But there's lots and lots of thought that's got to go into this to get this right. Just tripped over the rock again. I'm going to leave it at that. Any ideas, thoughts, comments, you know where to leave it. The response so far to my videos has been absolutely brilliant. I know a lot of you are enjoying the updates, and as much as I'm trying to keep making them, I've only got so much time in the day. I am having to work, I am having to do these projects, come back, I'm digging in the evening, which is limiting my time. Realistically, I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks that it's getting, at this point in time, it's getting very close to Easter, in a couple of weeks. So if all goes to well and I can get the effort in and I'll get the weather, I would love to get all this dug out and ready so I can order the liner, get some rocks ordered. So when the money starts coming out of the bank account, paying for all that stuff, because at the minute it's pretty much just been my labour and basic materials so far. So it's been a pretty cheap build up to this point because I'm doing it all myself. Okay. I feel like this has been very much a rambling video. I apologise if it's not all been for you. I'm just expressing my thoughts, concerns, ideas at this moment. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that love this type of gardening, are very much pond people, plant people, and may have some really good ideas and some advice. So I'll see you later, and thanks for watching.